Good morning and welcome to the Monday, November 4th Board of Public Works and Safety. We are streaming this meeting live on the City of Madison YouTube channel. You can view it remotely or view it at your convenience later. We'll go through a roll call now, clerk.
Sure. Carl Eaglin.
Here.
Bob Courtney.
Here.
Dave Carlo.
Here.
Board, if you had an opportunity to review the minutes from October 21st, 2024, we'll entertain a motion to
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes as printed.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Now we'll move to claims.
Mayor had an opportunity to review the claims. We have a general claim docket totaling $504,200.36 and a payroll claim docket of $307,945.10. And I'll make a motion that the claims be approved as submitted.
Second David's motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. All right, no adjustments. Moving on, new business. I'll invite Chief Scudder here for Madison Police Department Standard Operating Procedure Review. Morning, Chief. Grab your mic there, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Always forget that. So you guys should have the new statewide uniform policy on use of force. That's a requirement sent down that we have to implement that. It's broken up into 3 sections because we could not, by law, change anything in the statewide policy. So it's SOP 2A, and then there were some portions that we wanted to keep from our old policy, and they're in 2B and 2C.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the main themes with the three SOPs, and then also maybe what we're doing? There'll be a follow-up to that, I guess, when we get into the Master Services Agreement.
Yeah, so Part A, like I said, that's what came down from the state. That outlines, basically covers all the topics that were in our old policy, but it just makes it uniform across the state so everybody's operating off the same procedure statewide. And I think they just did this from a liability standpoint. Can you roll down to section B? I'm sorry. So you can see in A, it defines everything that we use. Keep going, sorry. I didn't bring a copy with me. B. Please. So B covers our reporting procedures. That's just an internal thing that we do. The officers are required to complete use of force incident reports anytime that they use force on anybody. And then section C talks about approved weapons, OC spray, batons, and then also when we encounter sick or injured animals, when we have to dispatch those.
Okay. So just to summarize here, we have a statewide policy that was designed by the Law Enforcement Training Board.
Yes.
By state statute. It defines what is use of force, which includes chokeholds, deadly force, deadly weapon, animals, tasers, biological disease, and it also emphasizes de-escalation.
Yes, that is a state mandate now. We're required to receive annual training in de-escalation techniques.
Which I think is always really important.
Yes.
And it also describes what the officer can and can't do as it relates to use of force. Describe the annual training that you're implementing with regards to these standard operating procedures.
So and this was the first one that the training board tackled, was the use of force, but historically we were required to receive 2 hours of training in defensive tactics or use of force. They've now expanded that to 4 hours annually, but they've also put in certain topics that we have to hit every 2 years. I think there's 14 or 16 areas that we have to cover within a 2-year period. And they range from everything, handcuffing techniques, takedown procedures, all kinds of things. So,
And the other thing that we focused on, if you recall, 4 years ago, we had a steering committee. We evaluated all of our major standard operating procedures. We used a third-party company to help us identify and manage the risk elements of operating the police department. One of the things that was also important that's in this policy is the duty to intervene.
yes.
And do you want to describe what that is?
Yep, so anytime an officer sees another officer using excessive force, they are required to make an attempt to stop that use of force or excessive use of force. So it's now outlined in our policy that we have a duty to intervene.
And in the policy we did 4 years ago, I think we also incorporated duty to inform, which is to inform probably the ship captain or the
Yes.
chief that excessive force was used. I don't want to, kind of belabor that whole point, but I think, is that still in,
So it's
in one
under
of our
this
SOPs?
section E of 2A.
Oh, it is under
complete the
2A,
appropriate
okay.
reports or notifications.
Yeah, it's on this.
Okay, good.
So-
And so we have now 3 SOPs that we've kind of separated from the one we adopted 2 years
Yes.
ago. One follows the description and the training requirements by the state training board. And then we have the reporting procedures, and then SOP 2C brings in the other elements of our other policy, which is about approved weapons.
Yes.
Okay.
It sounds like a lot having A, B, and C, but I think it kind of spreads it out and simplifies it, makes it easier to read, so,
I agree with you. And it follows the state training board's requirements.
yes.
Now, once these are approved and you take it back, when does the training need to start? Is it this year? or after the
We've
first
already
year?
started the training,
You
and
already started
we're
the
well underway to hit our, I can't remember if it's 14 or 16 mandates, but Brad Demery's our defensive tactics instructor, and he's tracking on that very well. He had to get some updated training himself to be able to teach all the techniques, but I think he's got that wrapped up, and he's working on getting everybody in compliance.
And a lot of these things are covered at the academy to start with. But
Yes,
you
they
are just
cover
one-
this, but they, like I said, it's annual training that we have to receive, so
So today you're asking us to approve these 3 standard operating procedures?
that's correct.
I'll move that we approve the chief's recommendations for standard operating procedures 2A, 2B, 2C.
I'll second the mayor's motion.
We'll open it up to discussion.
I have a question, hope you can help me it's kind of a little confusing, I guess, but on the uniform statewide policy, under definitions, part 3, and letter C is deadly weapons. And 2, it describes a destructive device, weapon, device, taser, electronic stun weapon, equipment, chemical, substance, or other material in that manner. And then when you go down to just below that, number 5, it says the term does not include a taser, an electronic stun weapon, a chemical designed to temporarily incapacitate a person, or another device designed to temporarily incapacitate a person. So, I mean, not being a lawyer or police officer, to me, it kind of sounds a little contradictory. One, it describes the weapons, but to include,
Right, it says,
But-
if you read on it, the term does not include those that you listed if the device described in sections A through D is used by a law enforcement officer who has been trained in the use of the device. So it's talking about deadly weapon, but a taser may not be a deadly weapon in my hand since I've been trained. But if you're using a taser against me to incapacitate me, we can perceive that as a deadly weapon. Does that
It
make
makes sense.
Yeah.
okay.
It's a good clarification. Any other
The-
questions? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the main thing that I saw that confused me during the reviewing this policy, so.
Any other comments or questions from the audience? We have a motion and a second.
Yeah. Second.
Hearing no other comments or questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Chief, thanks. You want to roll into the master services agreement with Lexipol?
Yeah, I'm gonna invite Jeff Reinierson up. He's been
Morning, Jeff.
handling, Lexipol and in conversations with them, so he's kind of the resident expert.
Good morning.
Good morning. By the way, that actually threw me also, to your point. I had to read that 2 or 3 times to make sure I understood it.
You have to go to the statute and try to understand what
Yeah.
they're describing there for
Yeah,
that purpose.
It could be misinterpreted if you don't read it a couple times. So what we have as a proposal is, it's Lexipol. And Lexipol is a platform, it involves many different facets for law enforcement. One of the platforms they developed going back years ago is a streamlined process to come up with policies for departments, operating procedures. And the benefits to Lexipol are with the ever-changing case laws and state statutes throughout the country. Best practices would be another important consideration. They've taken all of that, and for our discussions, the state of Indiana, they have tailored policies, template policies to match the state requirements, state statutes, and U.S. Supreme Court decisions to come up with policies. And when we talk about policies, we just mentioned use of force, covered on that. Vehicle pursuits, those are areas of where you can be exposed to liability. So they've come up with a template. The process is they have, I think it's 175 pre-formatted policies for the state of Indiana. They would present those a few at a time for our review and then for customization to fit our department. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we would get a template policy and that's what we're stuck with. There's room for discussion as to how that works for us and our community. So it's a process that we go through a few policies at a time. We have policies now that govern a lot of the areas of liability and are guidelines for officers to follow. I believe this would be a little more robust. There's some policies that we may consider that would run through Lexipol and give us a good format to implement those policies if that's what you all decide. But it is and as the contract actually talks about, as we go throughout the year, if there are changes in case law, changes in best practice, changes in state statutes, it's automatically updated through attorneys that monitor case law and state law changes, in our case for Indiana. And they would actually send a notification that one of your policies needs your attention and recommended changes to wording to reflect those changes in case law and state law. So it's like live monitoring for our policy manual from a lot of attorneys, I'm sure. So, and the other component that they actually offer is e-learning. It's an online learning platform. It's Police One Academy. And that is, I gave you a list, I think it's about 6 pages long, different classes covering different topics. The officers would have the ability to go on the Lexipol platform and click on a topic, take the course online, and then go through a test. At the end, if they successfully pass the test, they are presented with a certificate of completion. And in Indiana, since they're already set up, it would automatically log those hours in ACADIS, which is the training documentation program used by the Law Enforcement Training Board, ILEA. So it would automatically credit however many hours that course covered for that topic for that officer. So it's just kind of
Quick question. The officer goes online and takes these courses computerized. The state recognizes that training?
They do, yes.
So, okay.
And I don't know, to answer that, I don't know if it's across the board, every single policy. I believe, but I don't want to speak out of turn, I believe that it does cover all those policies, and that they would receive, training credits for those
Yeah.
policies as they take them.
You said they take a test. Is this a test that will not be the same test for everybody? Was the questions and all? I know if Bob and I were doing this, he'd want to cheat off my test. I know how he is. But is this something that will be, the testing will be different? Set of questions?
It's probably the same, and I don't know 100%.
Okay.
But, I just was doing training this morning, and it wasn't something you could just click through
Right.
and then answer the questions. You have to watch the video.
Think about it.
Right, you can't just.
Yeah, ABC.
Fast forward to,
Click through and get
go.
to the test.
to
You
the-
actually have to sit there and actually do it. I think any of those things, there's probably room for
Yeah. it's an answer.
somebody wanting to be.
And does this come with our subscription that we're doing here?
This is part of the package that's presented to you.
Okay.
They actually discounted the online manual and almost made up for the cost of the Police One Academy. So it comes as a package deal. It's kind of bundling, if you will.
I like both elements of it. And if you think about what we're doing is the good training and good policies should result into less liability. And this is all about risk management because whenever an MPD officer, engages in any type of pursuit or use of deadly force or with any citizen, there's always exposure there, always. And the more we can do for documenting what our training procedures are and having a robust training program will help us manage that liability in the future and drive those other costs that most people don't see, which are the lawsuits, which are really, really expensive.
Yeah, and I think this goes right to, we talk about down the road, maybe accreditation for the department, and I think this is a great step in that direction. And also, the policies offer guidelines for officers, so it gives them a list of priorities and a list of just things they need to be conscious of as they handle a call. So I think it's good on both ends. It's a guide for officers also.
Might be far-flung, but it might be something to consider is whether this could have an effect on our insurance policy when it comes.
Well, claims on our insurance policy definitely drive what our premiums and premium growth
Right.
is. And whether it's a liability or a worker comp type claim, the less claims, the better. And you could, cities get sued all the time, and a lot of times those are multi-million-dollar claims on our liability insurance. So
But
yes,
having
it could.
access to the training and the updated policies and procedures and,
As Jeff touched on, one of our big goals, it was in a goal that he gave me at the beginning of the year, was to become an accredited department. And I believe that may have an effect on the city's insurance.
Mhm.
And one of the first steps to being accredited is policies.
Yeah.
And they come in, that's something they hit hard on, is our policies and making sure that they're good, strong policies and accessible by the officers, so they have the guidelines to operate. So this is a good step in that direction.
yeah.
Great step.
I like that we're moving in that direction toward state accreditation, so.
And these tests are something they can pull up on their own PC.
Yes.
You don't have to have a
Everybody will
standalone
have access to it.
workstation.
Any board training? I'm feeling, I'm in the middle of two guys that, he's already talking about cheating on an exam, so.
I like the online training. We have it in the fire department.
Yeah, we do.
So, I can set it home and bring it up on my computer and watch the program. At the end of the program, take a test and, get it a certificate, so.
I spent a couple hours this morning doing this.
Is this a 1 year, is this just a one year proposal that then each year we'll come back and just discuss a renewal?
Yes, so what you're looking at, Mayor, is the implementation, see if I can find it here.
It's not on that one.
It's not on that, it's on the next one, sorry.
Focused implementation.
So the focused implementation comes with just that, the implementation. That is, I think this package includes 50 policies that Lexipol will go over with us in that process that I alluded to earlier, just the what works for you, what doesn't, here's what we recommend. We pick 50 policies that we want Lexipol to help us with on that. Any policies outside that, and it gets into where I think the chief mentioned, it could be a uniform policy. Lexipol's probably not gonna care too much about that. That's up to us to decide what the uniforms look like. So it covers the 50 main policies, which would cover the majority of the policies that would be implemented and revised under this umbrella. So that's just a one-time fee. The other two fees actually for Lexipol, so this would include the calendar year 2025. They would be giving us November and December free, basically, and then charging us for next year. The subscription fee of the $16,000 would be annually, and that covers the monitoring and the policy updates that they would send us and push out. So I did check with them, asked the hypothetical, if we decided we didn't want to spend that money each year, what happens to the policy manual? And the policy manual is created for us to use internally. It would stay in a PDF format for us to use. The only thing that would go away is they're updating the policy throughout that calendar year. And they've mentioned that they've had other departments that couldn't match the fee for because of budget constraints. And all that happens is they go a calendar year, let's say, without the updates. And then so the policy becomes kind of stagnant or static. And then if you upgrade the following year, they're going to push all of the updates that came from that previous year to you to update and modify policies. So that's what was important for me, is we don't want a platform where they own our policies, and if we don't pay the fee, they take those policies away. They're ours to use,
Good.
whether or not we pay the subscription fee.
I appreciate the work you guys have done on this, and again, the goal is the offering the best training possible to our professional police officers. Need a motion to approve the Lexipol Master Services Agreement as outlined by Chief and Jeff?
I'd just like to ask, we talked a little bit about, this is a national company recognized by professional police organizations for the work that they do, and it's legit. It's very well recognized, used throughout the United States, and so I make a motion that we approve the master service agreement with Lexipol.
I'll second David's motion.
Okay, any discussion? Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Move into PACE finals. Introduce yourself to your fan club out there in Madison, Indiana's YouTube channel.
I'm Brenna, I'm the historic preservationist, and I'm taking PACE over for Nicole while she is out on maternity leave. She's not gone yet. She's
Good
just
job.
out today. And for PACE this week, or this time, we have 2 finals.
Brian, I might ask you to speak up a little bit and in the
Sure.
microphone. Thank you.
We have 2 finals. The first one is 119 East Street. Ken and Linda Pettit are asking for the final disbursement of their PACE rehabilitation grant funds. All of the work has been completed, which includes window restoration, aluminum-clad replacement windows, and shutter restoration. And the disbursement request is for $7,190.40.
We'll do these as a batch, but that looks really good. What's the next one? What's that?
The second one is 707 Walnut Street. Cornerstone Society is asking for the final disbursement of their PACE rehabilitation grant funds. All of the work has been completed, which includes the complete rehabilitation of the exterior of the home, including structural framing on the interior. The disbursement request is for $12,500 since they received a midpoint payment.
So there's no work on the interior yet?
Just structural.
Just structure.
And is it painted?
I don't have that information.
I know Link is here. Maybe we could just, thank you for the work you've done on 707 Walnut Street. Yeah, I'm trying to, is it, I can't tell from here. Is it painted?
It's white.
I mean, is that the final paint color?
No, we may paint it a different color at some point. We want that better paint on.
Yeah,
This is first.
looks nice.
I make a motion with it, and we approve the, PACE finals at 707 Walnut Street and 119 East Street.
I'll second Carl's motion.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for the work they've made in these properties. If you look at the several hundreds of structures that the city of Madison's been involved in with its PACE program all across our community, block by block and building by building, we are eliminating blight and preserving our historic structures in our beautiful historic district. So I'm grateful for everybody who's doing that, as well as the program we have here at the city. So any comments or questions?
I'd like to thank Cornerstone for the two projects. This one at 707 Walnut and the one, 815, 817 West Second Street. Both of those tremendous outcomes, improve the look of the neighborhood and the city. So thanks to Cornerstone for taking on those projects.
Yeah, thank you.
So-
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Before we move into staff reports, I think, do we have a guest here who has a request of the Board of Public Works and Safety? Who's bringing Christmas cheer right after Halloween?
It's the best way to do it. My name's Lindsay Holly. I'm here on behalf of the Madison Main Street Program, 321 West Main Street. This Friday, we have holiday open house from 4 to 8 p.m. So if you haven't gotten your cookie tin, make sure you do that.
I have.
Oh, good. I submitted a request to close off just the entrance of the comfort station. We have Don Wiest. He has his vintage red truck that he asked to park in the entrance, just to block off any other traffic making that round. So it's just a photo op, kind of show people that the comfort station's right there, just during that 4-hour time span.
What's the
Right.
time frame for the open house?
So it's Friday, November 8th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
And he will be there with the vehicle in case something happens and we have to.
Yep.
It's a really cool car if you haven't
Mhm.
seen it.
Yep.
He's been at our car shows.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be great for the holiday open house, which is this Friday already. I will move that we approve Holly Jolly's request for this Friday from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Comfort Station for Mr. Wiest's display of his truck, right?
I'll second the mayor's motion.
1936 Chevrolet, there we go.
Yeah, what he
Thank you.
said.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, guys.
Is it red? It's
It
red
is
too, isn't it?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, he was driving Santa around in it,
Right.
but the power steering's out, so.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Holly Jolly. I thought all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And buy your cookie tins. All right, we'll move into staff reports. Mindy, our deputy mayor, will give an update on the Main Street Corridor resurfacing project that we presented to the last city council meeting, and I believe has been reported in the Madison Courier. A little overview here. So in 2014, the city of Madison agreed to have about 4.5 miles of former State Highway 56 transferred to the city. The city, from that day forward, once it took possession, which was in 2020, became obligated for all the repairs and maintenance of this corridor. So for the past 4 years, we've been doing planning and grant writing and engineering and design work. And now we are ready to present an outline that will begin the resurfacing and reconstruction in 2025, but it includes some elements to it that weren't part of the original Main Street Master Plan, but are now part of it, and that is traffic calming on the east end and west ends of this corridor because of the high volume of traffic and the rate of speed. So, Minnie, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for all your work. You've led this along with Nicole and Tony, but we'll give us an overview on the Main Street corridor.
Thank you, Mayor. If board's permission, I'm going to sit right here so I can operate this show and the camera and still talk to you.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera so that for the recording they can see that. All right. And Tony normally does this with me, so I'm just going to try and handle it all by myself today. Just a quick timeline, redoing the timeline. The Main Street was taken over through a road transfer agreement when the bridge approach was built. There was no negotiation at the time for maintenance or improvement dollars to go along with that. So we took it over as is in summer of 2020 and then began talking about the opportunity that presented taking over an old state highway that is actually our main street. So we performed, we put together a steering committee and also hired Ratio Design to help us visualize the ideas that came to light from that, and then hired Jacoby Toombs and Lawns to prepare our master plan and cost estimates on the things that we wanted to include. So that went on throughout the summer of 2020. In September of 2020, we started sort of reinforcing that gross weight limit that helped with the truck traffic on Main Street to help maintain the road a little better. In December of 2020, we dedicated a CCMG application to stabilize the road surface, which included a lot of things. One was the full depth repair of half of the right lane all the way up Hanover Hill, where the heavy truck traffic had created a groove all the way up. We dug all that out and replaced it with a new surface. We did depth repair of over 200 potholes and failed excavations. So when there's a road cut and it's not put back properly, it sinks, along with just potholes all up and down Main Street. We filled over 200 of those. They were cut out and done correctly. And then we applied liquid road sealer over the entire surface from Jefferson Street to the Clifty Creek Bridge. Point of that being to hold that asphalt together. It seeps down in it, holds it together. Hopefully get us a few more years out of the road surface while we wait on the federal grants to come into play, which I believe it has done so. And then we restriped from the railroad bridge to Broadway to calm the traffic and get that to one lane each direction with a turn lane. I think that we sort of looked at as an experiment has gone very well and has improved traffic flow and speeds on Main Street, at least on the west end. We received Federal Highway Grant number 1 in February of 2021. That was about a $5 million grant. We have a 20% match on that, and that will get us to the incline bridge from the top of the hill. Summer of 2021, we had community open houses and presentations based on the steering committee information. And then in fall of 2021, we presented the final master plan from the West End Gateway to Jefferson Street, West End Gateway being there by the Country Club. March of 22, we received a second federal highway grant. This was about $12 million, again, 20% match. And we applied again in November of 22, but we were not awarded that grant. So we have had ongoing engineering for phase 1 and 2 since we received the first grant. And in spring of this year, we reviewed the master plan and reassessed our strategy and funding options because we really we don't have the time to wait for more federal grants. We're looking at a 2030 cycle right now. So we're trying to look at other options to fund the completion of Main Street and get it back in good condition. May of this year, we were awarded Great American Main Street by the National Main Street Organization. In August, we met with NDOT to discuss our strategies, approach, and how we could stack some capital and the timing around federal highway grants and federal bridge grants they're very particular. So we have to stay out of that footprint and can't be working in it while there's a federal grant going on there. In fall of this year, we were named the 2024 Indiana City of the Year by the Indiana Chamber, and also just a few weeks ago applied for some NDOT safety grants, which will include the East and West End traffic safety. NDOT has given us approval to restripe on the east end leading up through the Jefferson Street to make it match what happens when you're coming off the bridge, the one lane with a turn. And also we will redo the west end intersection there by the country club, make that safer. And we have applied for some safety materials for the West and Main Street intersection and West and Mulberry intersection, which would include upgraded traffic signals, audible crosswalks, and restriping of those crosswalks. So hopefully, and we should know this month on those if we've received those or which of them that we have received. So we're trying to combine monies and grant opportunities to complete at least from Broadway all the way to the top of the hill. The general business district is a much larger, very expensive, takes a lot of planning, and right now we've got our hands full with doing this much. So we're going to press the pause button on that one and make sure that we can complete everything else that we are trying to do for the district. And in January in 2025, we intend to apply for CCMG to resurface from Mill to Broadway. That will connect the link that we ended at Mill Street with the federal grants. So just to a little more detail on each phase, Main Street 1 is Hanover Hill to McIntyre. That's a $5.5 million project. It will include resurfacing, drainage, sidewalk repair where needed. And we have already banked the match on that. We've actually already started spending that on preliminary engineering, but that money is already in the bank. Main Street phase, what we're calling 1A, is the restructure of that intersection at the country club. So to make that safer, there will be sidewalks added on the north side that will go over and connect to the bridge where the new trail will pick up as part of the trail project. So that will complete that from a pedestrian standpoint. We'll put a crosswalk over to the south side so people can get to the pickleball courts and the golf course, and redo the intersection so you will no longer be driving west on Main Street and cut over to go back to the pickleball courts. You'll stay straight, go around the corner, and turn and go up at the extra.
Yeah, and I might add a couple things here. This is a very dangerous part of West Main Street. You have traffic going at high rates of speed at different directions. You have, as Mindy was saying right now, they can be going however their speed is heading west and then cut over to the Elks, which is a problem. There's housing right there on that corner. The sidewalks have been discontinued or didn't get finished many years ago, so now that will finally connect and it'll start bringing that street into feeling like a local street rather than continuing to be a highway. And with the crosswalk feature and a speed table, cars going in both directions are going to have to slow down in order to cross that speed table because we have lots of high rate of speed, people coming in, people leaving, and it's going to make that intersection a lot safer. I don't know if people remember or not. I've lived here my entire life, but there was an accident probably around 40 years ago, claimed the lives of two young boys at that down there at that intersection, and it was a very unfortunate thing and just horrible for the families of those boys who were killed in the traffic accident down on there. And we haven't done anything to abate but now we're taking action on it, incorporating it into our Main Street corridor project.
Might
You
say
remember that? You remember that?
as a firefighter for several years, more than I'd care to say, I've responded to several accidents
Might be
at
50 years ago.
the country club intersection, and I was there at that fatality and several other rollovers. So it has been a dangerous intersection for forever. So
And
Yeah.
speed's also an issue there, so we started that slow down on the bridge and by lowering the speed limit a couple of years ago. Coming across the bridge has helped a little, but it's still too easy for people to get going faster when they ramp up around that corner, so. This was one of the safety grants that we just applied for, and that has a 10% match, so it's much more manageable from our budget standpoint. This is just a rendering that we created for the walkway across the bridge. That will be part of the trail project and connect to the trail.
I just want to say I've never forgotten the grief that the McClure and Cox family endured and others who were involved in that accident, and it's long overdue. So I'm happy we're able to do it here, but also make that corridor much safer and much more functional, but connect it with the park project as well.
Main Street Phase 2 is from the Incline Bridge to Mill Street. That is some sidewalk replacement as needed, resurfacing, and just for the record, there's a lot of limestone curbing in that footprint. Those will remain or be taken out and put back in the same location, so nothing will change there. That was the $12 million project. Includes a lot of infrastructure as well as the road resurfacing, and money is already being saved for that as well. We've already spent $334,000 on that project in preliminary engineering. So the time frame for federal grants 1 and 2 is real tight, very close together. So there's going to be some construction going on for in a few
Mindy,
years.
will that include updated storm drainage?
There is some storm drainage in that project. I'm not sure how much, but yes, we're reviewing all of that as well.
Some storm drainage repair and some sidewalk repair. So
Yes.
it's not a complete replacement, but it is taking care of what is needed.
Yes. West End in that footprint has a lot of areas where the sidewalks, especially on the north side, they are higher. And so it creates an ADA situation coming back down. We will be correcting that. Down around the condos, and when you get near to the bridge, we're not ADA accessible in several of those places on the north side, so we'll be fixing all that.
Just as an estimate, of course, I know it's gonna vary in different blocks, but how much do you see being milled down on Main Street? 12 inches, 16 inches on the average?
We're going to definitely go a little deeper. I'm not sure what the surface is underneath or how much it's been paved on top of. I'd have to look back at the docs to see what the bid was for,
'Cause I
or
know
what the
right
bid will
there
be
on
for.
the south side, just past Craigmont Street, the pavement's actually
curves.
touching the curb.
Yes, it's
So that
been
would help with the
paved over a
drainage.
lot.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
it's
we do
some-
intend to mill down deeper than the 1.5 inch that we normally do, but I'd have to check to make sure what the actual,
That's gonna help a lot with
It'll help a
drainage.
lot.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just doing that.
trying to get our we always try to get our curbs back when we're milling and paving.
Will this include removing the crown from Main
Yes.
Street,
Yes.
make it more flat?
Mhm.
So.
Yep.
Okay.
Phase 3, Mill to Broadway, that's the source we'll use CCMG for. That's a 50% match. That's in January that we'll be applying for that. And that is mainly resurfacing with some sidewalk replacement as needed. There are definitely places we know we need to replace sidewalk, like in front of the library. So we'll be taking care of those items as well in this project. That will get us to the Broadway intersection. Phase 4 would be East End traffic safety. That is the traffic calming that we submitted to NDOT for approval to get a permit, because that is their road and in their footprint. They have issued that permit and given us the permission to do it. Of course, we have to pay for it. So we have applied for a safety grant for that to get the restriping done, and that will match It'll match the striping coming off the bridge. It will match what we've done on the west end, and it will bring it a little farther this way, it actually goes all the way to Mulberry Street.
This rendering is also on the board over there. We talked about this about a year ago at the open house when we had a public meeting at the number one fire department for public safety on that east end. This is, as you know, a very wide part of Main Street that has several crosswalks in it. And it's the crosswalks that aren't lighted, and even the ones that are lighted, it's just a very dangerous corridor. We had 3 or 4 methods of interdiction. One was, obviously strengthen our law enforcement down there. We put these signs in the road, alert the drivers that there could be a pedestrian inside the crosswalk. We removed vegetation that was blocking visibility. The 4th step was to get approval from NDOT to implement this plan. And we did that, and now it's the grant in order to fund the implementation of the plan. So we think this will be a really good addition. It will slow things down in both directions, particularly those heading east toward the bridge. We have a lot of people that either are coming off the bridge or going to the bridge, and that's where their focus is, and not on slowing down for the pedestrian safety and the crosswalks.
This will mean really that the only place where there's 4 lanes left is between Mulberry and Poplar. So that's the racetrack between
Right.
those.
Right business district.
Yeah.
And so again, it's staging early, and then having your middle lanes be your left and turn lanes. If you're coming west to the intersection of Main and Jefferson Street, you'll actually have a lane you can go straight, a lane you can turn left, and then a lane to turn right. So we think it's better organized, and 1 lane to go east. So we think it's a better approach, and it will require people to be cautious. I know a lot of people want to get to where they're going as fast as possible. And that's part of the problem across our entire community, is that they're not slowing down just the few seconds or a minute that it takes to make things safer. Our biggest issue in our community all across town is speeding and distracted driving, unfortunately. So it requires us to design roads for vehicles and pedestrians, instead of, as you know, the highway design earlier was get people in their vehicles where they're going as fast as possible. These are local road and streets that are mixed in with a lot of intersections and state highways, and it's up to us to design it correctly so that we can have that happy medium of safety as well as the speed of travel. I think this does that, and I know Pam and Larry Newhouse are here. Thank you guys for being here. You and others were very vocal about the need for more safety improvements on the east end. This is a big investment for the city with permission from the state, and we're anxious to get it done, and once we get this grant, we'll be able to implement it.
Mayor Bob, we're really
Yeah.
excited about it. I think it's a good plan.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
What's the time period for this?
So these are announced in November. They have to be spent by 26, so it would be probably next spring.
Once it warms up, and actually to do the work.
It has to be 45 degrees and rising or something like that. Okay. And then this is just a summary for you of all the dollars and how we are combining and stacking capital to get this done. There is obviously a gap in funding because everything requires a match, and the match varies from 10% to 50%. So we have identified how to fill the gap. We are, council, I can't remember if I think they've approved it with the budget, the funding of general obligation bond that will raise $1.6 million that we will use for to fill this gap. Also redevelopment, a proposed bond in redevelopment for a little over $1 million will assist in that. And then we'll use our local dollars out of the budget as well, like we always do. And that gets us to $21 million of probably a $40 million project when you include the general business district. So that's why we've sort of hit the pause button on the general business district, worrying about getting this funding in place and getting this work done, and then we'll start tackling the next. So I am happy to answer any questions if you have anything else.
I get a lot of comments there about the intersection at Cragmont Street
Yes.
where you can, you should be able to turn right.
Mm-hmm.
You think that will be, placed, or?
I'm not sure. NDOT will work with us, I'm certain. But in terms of restriping, I think that we can do that. I don't think we have to have their permission to put a turn lane in at Craigmont and Main.
Yes, we do.
We do?
And they've said no. So
Okay.
the many times we've asked.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
the
Right
turn
turn
lane,
lane.
not the arrow.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, they do. There's not enough room in that intersection for that turn, for that to be considered a safe turn
Okay.
for their standards. But that's been the issue with not having a right turn lane at that intersection.
Okay. And just for the record, on the east end, where the trucks will have one lane to turn right and go up North 421, the mayor and I have been down there. We've videoed them do it from the existing lane. It is possible, and it does work.
I was glad
The-
to see the barricades come down on Main
Yes.
Street and Second today.
Yes.
They were a bit of
It's
a
confusing.
nuisance.
Now, am I correct, the intersection of Craigmont and Main Street is still under the control of the state of Indiana?
Yes, it is.
Because I see a lot of misinformation on social media and
Surely
complaints
not.
about the right turn at Craigmont Street. And, just to clarify for people that the city has no control over that. That is an NDOT controlled intersection, so.
We've asked multiple times, but I would say that if anybody wants to ask, they can go to www.n.4u and make that request too.
One thing that we will be doing as part of this, all these projects, is syncing the traffic signal timing. Because that's part of the problem with that intersection is it turns green for you after Mill Street has turned green for them, and then you can't go by the time yours turns. So we are going to resync the timing of the traffic signals.
And this last slide is a summary. As you can see, it's very complicated, very expensive. We're already talking about a decade's worth of work here, from 2020 to 2030. And as we get started on implementing the first part of the phase, we've already done the restoration part, we'll be continuing to design the Central Business District corridor part, which is very complicated and very expensive.
The other thing to keep in mind is the amount of time between estimates that go into an application for a grant that we did in 2020 and construction won't begin until 25 or 26. A lot of things can happen in the market there, so
A lot
your
of price risk
bids
associated with
may
that.
come in much higher than what your estimates were. So they always add a little bit, I think 10% to make sure, but that's not been enough recently.
Mindy, the project from the bridge to Mill Street, or even up to Broadway Street eventually, that's going to include new curbs?
As
and-
needed,
Pardon?
as needed.
As needed, sidewalk repairs. So the footprint of the road's going to stay the same.
Yes.
I mean, it's not going to be
No, it won't narrow.
whatever the width of the road is now, it's what's going to be the finished product. So-
Yes.
And sidewalks, pretty much as they are now, as
Yes,
far
we'll
as
just
width.
replace where needed, yes.
So, and then trees along the road, trees will be kept as,
Yes, there's no plans to, unless they need to be removed, there's no
Right.
plans to remove or,
right,
we'll probably will be planting new trees, if I had to guess.
yeah.
There may be some corners with bump outs in order to try to make that a safer crosswalk area, so.
Makes sense around the library and Vine Street where there's no signal. We've tried to improve that with the signs
Signage.
like are on the east end, and I think that has helped, but it's just hard to do enough visually for drivers to recognize that people may need to be in that crosswalk.
Well, I definitely think the lighting down there has helped, along with the signage in the street, so.
Well, we wanted to give another update on this, and we were creating a Main Street page on our City of Madison website where we have all of our projects listed, so people can conveniently go to that location and see all of this information and get regular updates as we proceed with the actual project in the spring of next year.
Thank you, Board.
Any
Thanks,
questions? Any questions, comments? All right, well, I want to thank everybody, and Mr. and Mrs. Newhouse, thank you for being here for this part of it. And now we'll move to another staff update, and this is on excavations. Brian Shaw. I'll give a little overview here. Another policy update in addition to the overweight, or I should say the weight limits on Main Street. This is about preserving the investment that we've made. We've made major tens of millions of dollars of investments in our roads and sidewalks across our community, but one of the issues that kept creeping up were contractors coming to the community to do underground work and doing excavations in our roads and sidewalks and not repairing them or replacing them or resurfacing them back to a standard of design such that it didn't fail and create very expensive problems for the city at a later date. I will say that it did create significant expense for the city to correct a lot of these failed excavations from the last decade or so. And whenever you drive around town, particularly downtown, you'll see and witness and experience those as potholes and problems and bumps. And so the way we get a handle on that is to implement a new policy, create standard design specifications, and then implement a permitting process that requires the contractors to actually get a physical permit in order to do the work in the city of Madison public right-of-way. Brian's going to give us an update on that process and also the volume of permits that we've issued since implementing this in the past year.
No.
Oh, you don't have this to put on the screen?
You should have this right-away report.
Was it in the package?
It was,
Should be in
it
the
was in our
package.
packet,
Yep.
yeah.
And also, Mayor, I ran a report as well, and I'm going to give it to the board. So I'm going to give you this. This is kind of an active report.
Oh,
I'm still
okay.
working on it.
Oh, okay,
So
thank you.
I want you to have that.
No, this wasn't in our packet. It wasn't in our packet.
Okay.
Right, he
Okay.
got it to us.
Okay, you sure it wasn't in the packet? Okay.
So as you can see from the report that we've increased in our excavation and dumpster permits and driveway permits. So I guess we went down a couple.
Yeah, we'll start with the excavation permits,
Okay.
Mindy. At the top, excavation permits.
Yeah.
There we go.
So we've increased quite a bit. And I think some of the issues we're having is they're not getting inspected, like you said, properly.
Well, let's just kind of rephrase this. So,
Okay.
since we implemented this policy in the summer of last year, we've issued 288 excavation permits year to date. And that just shows you the velocity of how many people or contractors are coming to Madison. 288, that's almost one a week being requested to do some form of excavation in our right-of-way, which is, we're gonna come in, we're gonna dig up your road and or dig up your sidewalk. So that's why this policy was implemented, and you can see it's happening on a very regular basis.
So what we're trying to accomplish here is keeping on top of these contractors to where we're inspecting, make sure they're backfilling properly. And like I said, some of them are just coming in and not getting a permit, number one, or two, they are and they're not calling us. So what I've started to do now, I've only taken this over for like 2 weeks ago. When I see a permit application come over my desk, first thing I do is contact that contractor. And we have an ordinance here, like Mayor said, with all the specifications, because not everyone's the same, every excavation is different. You may be in the grass, you may be in the sidewalk, you may be in our roads. So I have all that. And I ask the contractor if he has those specifications. If not, email them to them, and then after that, they need to get with me before they come in town to dig. Now, I know we have emergencies, that's totally different. But if we can alleviate them from coming in and just start cutting without us knowing, I think that's gonna help us quite a bit.
Now,
Yeah.
When you issue a permit, I mean, there's rules and regulations that goes with it. And a phone call at the end of it is on that, to call you guys and say we're finished, correct?
Absolutely, they need to call
Okay.
me twice, one for the
Okay.
backfill, because normally if it's flowable or whatever it is, they need to be compacted and it needs to set.
Okay.
And then they come back with asphalt or concrete, depending on where it's located at.
Okay,
So
you're
there's two
probably gonna-
processes to
You're probably gonna visit that
Right.
twice.
Yes, and I'd actually like to, once we start this project, is we get these roads paved, is I want a pre-construction meeting or excavation before you come in. Is it really necessary to cut up this section? Is there another way around it? It's boring. I think you and I have discussed that. So there's a lot of things we can do to probably help keep our roads even better and not just cutting into them constantly.
Well, just to put it in perspective, just this stretch of Main Street we're talking about today is over $20 million. And literally what happens often is the week after you put down hundreds and hundreds or millions of dollars worth of paving, someone's coming in and wanting to cut it up. And you don't have to go very far from where we're sitting to see where those have failed over time and create tremendous amount of damage in the road if it's not done properly. So not only do you have to have the right specifications, but you have to have the right inspection process. And each of these contractors now are posting a bond to ensure that their work is being completed correctly. We need to do a better job on the inspection, which is why Brian's taken this initiative over, and bring in a quality assurance element to maintaining our investment in our roads and sidewalks and other areas. So what's in this report here is, I'm not sure a whole lot of people know that if you are going to dig up any area that is in a right-of-way of the city, you need a permit for that. And you can do it online through OpenGov. It's very simple. You can request your inspections online, but also if you're going to put a driveway in or have a dumpster on the street for an extended period of time, you can apply for that permit online, and it can be managed. And then what this report is doing is just describing the number of, and the amount of activity that we have in the planning department for permits. It's a lot. Do we have any questions for Brian? We just really wanted to make the board and the community aware of this permit process, and then also our focus on quality assurance and protecting our city's investment in its roads and sidewalks.
I know with the curb cutaways that you gotta be real watchful of the safety aspects of it. I know the church down on Broadway, they're working to cut a curb down there that had handicapped parking. I know you've been down there and talked with them.
Yeah, correct.
These things
That's,
are very important once they get back, that they still comply with all the ADA safety requirements.
yes, and that's where we having them get a hold of the state with ADA and meet with them and get a game plan and come back to us with that. So that's kind of where we're at with that process.
Because I know you got a lot of people around town in the wheelchairs and things, and you've heard the complaints, I bumped off a curb and lost a wheel.
Yes,
So I'd sure like to stop all that as we could. It's never gonna stop it completely, but we can just make it better.
yes, absolutely.
Well, we also have a plan to correct older excavations in our roads that have made a problem with the driving experience there. So you might be seeing around town where if we're not paving a road, we're going back and repairing the worst of those prior excavations. And the city's had to incur that expense because over time, those excavations had failed, primarily because they weren't backfilled correctly, they settled, and then the weight, the driving over that excavation created damage in the road.
Yeah, and there's another thing nice about this, I know it's still in its infancy, but I can keep tabs of someone coming in, and if I have on the report that we still have a excavation that's kind of not fully documentation, I can hold off until they can give me documentation or need them to dig that up before they can come in and start another application and excavation.
Excellent report. Good job.
Brian, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mayor, board.
Yep, you're
Thank you.
welcome. All right, moving on, with no unfinished business. On the mayor's comments, I'll just mention that we've had a very busy October, and I think since our last meeting, we had a very successful conference. preserving historic places, which very suitable that it was in the city of Madison. I think that conference went very well. Last weekend, we had Mad Hop Music Festival, another one downtown, perfect weather, incorporating, Madison's role as Indiana's music city into shopping, dining, and visitor experience, as well as everybody who lives here. You get to enjoy that too. As Lindsay was here earlier talking about this Friday being kind of the kickoff to the holiday season with the holiday open house on Main Street. And we'll also get to see the 1936 Chevy parked in front of the Comfort Station. Tomorrow's the election. The offices are closed. I want to encourage everybody to get out and vote. If you haven't voted by now, I think the polls are probably early voting's closing now. But please vote tomorrow, and we'll be back here for a city council meeting Wednesday evening. Board, anything else you want to add?
The Fall Festival, I understand, went over very, very well, but the same day, we had the truck and treat with all the fire apparatuses at Madison Township at the same time.
Didn't know about that.
Yeah, so there were not many kids up there, but they got a lot of candy. There's 100
Good.
kids, enough candy for 1,000. They were happy.
Yes,
But maybe next year we could coordinate that and maybe do it at the Fireman's Park.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the fire department event. There was a lot of work from our Parks Department and all the volunteers for a great experience with the Harvest Festival on Vaughn Drive. It was phenomenal. And, yeah, there was so much going on around town. Good coordination, can bring it for everybody. And we had an awesome trick or treat last Wednesday. Perfect weather for that. Anything else?
Good.
Any public comments? If anybody's here would like to address the Board of Public Works and Safety, please come to the podium. Our next meeting will be Monday, November the 18th. Only 3 meetings left of 2024.
Make a motion.
Hard to believe. I second your motion.
I'm sorry.
I know, I second your motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Didn't mean to
Thanks
step-
everybody for being here.
Didn't mean to step on your thumb.
Way to go, Carl.
Just like you get to spend the whole day with Steve tomorrow.
I love it. It's a tradition.